What's up, everybody? Welcome. I'm Guy. That's John. It's Haberman of MIDDLEKAUFF. You too. Hit that like button, subscribe. Podcast. Great to have you there as well. We are brought to you by our friends at Tito's. Handmade vodka. Tito's toast. To start the show, John, do you have a toast for anybody?
Yes, to the Niners and Rams game for ending, because I thought I was going to enjoy that game more. Gonna be honest, had a tough time with it. I really did. Enjoyed early on, thinking I was kind of cool. It had second half preseason vibes, and I was a little more locked into Bears Packers that meant something. That was tough.
It was one of those. They told me not that many guys can sit, but I feel like I'm seeing 15 guys from the preseason. How'd they fit all these guys on the roster?
Well, it shows you those guys just don't play at all in the in regular season games. Like a lot of times, it shows you like special teams guys. If Debo or Ayuk or those guys never get hurt, like they don't see the field on offense.
Right.
You know, basketball, you can't hide a guy if he's like in your 8-man rotation. In football, you can't pretty easily. Like there are DBs and definitely wide receivers. You're like, wait, what? Who's that number? Because Roddy Bell, Conley, like those type guys that are active every game day, never play on offense.
Right.
McLeod back.
Bell in the last few weeks, he got a snap here, a snap there. And you notice him the second he was on the field because he was so out of the ordinary.
Jump out for sure.
Yeah. Braden Willis, you're like 9? That's a good one, John.
That is.
John, that's a good one. There's so many Tito's toast to go around today. Jameis for being the great teammate that he is, in ignoring Dennis Allen's plea for a kneel down. As a team, we decided to go for the score out of a victory formation, and Arthur Smith lost his mind. Tito's toast, you know the old saying, the most popular man on a team is always the backup quarterback. Well, how about the most popular man on a team is always the former kicker who's out skiing? Robbie Gould on the slopes. People are tagging him in tweets, begging him to come back. Nothing they can do about that, though. Tito's handmade vodka, distilled and bottled in Austin, Texas. 40% alcohol by volume, namely 80 proof, crafted to be savored responsibly.
I do think the number one thing that could take down the Niners, beside, as we saw, a major injury, like if they're playing, would be a close game and it come down to the kicker.
Yeah.
Right. Because I went out to the golf course on Friday, ton of just Niner people there, and was bullshitting with different people. And it's like, God, how's this team going to lose? And it's just like, well, talking more NFC than like beating the Ravens or whatever in the Super Bowl, but just like, how can they not go to Vegas? Well, for the most part, you're going to play. If you obviously they'd have to play in 2 playoff games because they avoid the first round. One of the games going to be tight, as well what happened last year, right? Before Brock Purdy got injured. Dallas was hard. And in that type game, Robbie Gould matters. And this kicker who had kind of been a little out of sight, out of mind, you hadn't been thinking about as much, it kind of came back eye-opening today. It's like, bro, if you play a cut, which you play in golf, you don't aim to hit a draw. Why? I'm no kicking guru, but if you play a fade, why are you playing it off the right post, aiming at the left? Chicago, or I guess the game was in Green Bay, the wind was clearly pumping. Chicago's kicker plays a cut. He fucking starts it at the left upright, and it cuts right in. Why does Moody, who clearly is a power fade guy, like a Dustin Johnson, aim it like toward the right edge? Like, it doesn't make any fucking sense. You don't play a hook, buddy. Your natural.
The problem is he does sometimes.
Well, yeah,
that's
he like
crazy
double crosses like a golfer.
He'll get the hookies.
But if he's hitting it normally, he clearly plays a little cut. And today, he's aiming at the right side. So it's like you're aiming to hit a draw, but you're a cut guy. And today, I mean, the second one wasn't even remotely close.
That was an extra point.
The extra point was bad. But it's like that's a field goal in a tight game when you're kicking
the first kick was
field goal.
The first kick was 38, missed it. And I've been saying it for a while. If you just watch him, as we all do, anybody listening to this, you probably watch Moody a lot. His ball, even when he makes kicks, moves a ton. And it moves
in the third round.
It moves unpredictably, John. It moves unpredictably. Yeah. Like
a lot of movement.
It'll go left and then cut right. And like to your point on golf analogies, like if it's consistent, you can play the same shot every time. But his ball moves like he's kicking at the top of Mount Everest sometimes. Like is there like a double cross wind? No. So
what was the weather like there today?
Fine. It was a little cold, but relatively. But I think anybody that's watching him for a while knows that the streak of most extra points made and most kicks made inside of 40, like none of that meant anything to anybody. And I'll use the analogy again. Anybody who watches baseball every day, and only the home team's fans can watch a team every day. There's too many games. So you get to the playoffs, and here comes Brian Wilson, and you look at the stats, you go, third year all-star again for Brian Wilson, 41 saves this year. But everybody watching knows it's a roller coaster because he's going to be all over the zone, and he's going to give up a walk, and he's going to strike a guy out, and then the catcher's going to have to catch a ball.
Who was that A's closer that was the Australian who was like that?
Oh, Grant Balfour.
Yeah,
Grant Balfour was the same way. That's the type of kicker he is. Which, to your point, I agree. Injury is the only thing that can keep out of the Super Bowl. Well, you know what? Actually, we got to put Moody in a big spot. I don't know at the end of that game if it was going to be better or worse if he had gotten a chance to get a game winner. I guess if he'd made it, it would have been better. If he'd missed it, it would have been worse. But it could have gone either way. Who knows? Darnold's fumble might have saved him. But it's a real problem, and there's nothing there's nothing they can do about it. You can't work. You're not kicking. You're not working out some kickers this week. Robbie Gould's not coming back from Park City. Like, Jake Moody's the kicker of the team. And does Kyle have to go for it on 4th and 1 in field goal range in a 0-0 game? Yeah, okay, that's an easier one. But down by 3, you kick that field goal. I don't know. I mean,
I think after might have been the extra point. Maybe it was the field goal where they showed Kyle, and he didn't like throw anything, but you could see his face. It wasn't even about today, right? It's not Today didn't matter. Nothing mattered today beside no one getting injured. But it was like, God, how it's all about, like, Kyle's no dummy. Like, I have a hard time seeing them win both games by 20. It's just never that easy. That's not the way sports work. And I actually think there's a pretty good chance they face the Rams. I guess we'll have to see who got hurt on Detroit. I mean, Laporta might have tore his knee. They had a million injuries. The Rams could easily go into Detroit and win that game. And, assuming that Dallas beats the Packers, you would play the Rams. And say what you want, like, Puka Nacua changed them because Cooper Kupp was a stud. So now you add a guy who's another hunter catch guy, their running game, and their offensive coach. Like, what if their offense is just on? So, yeah, their defense isn't great, but, like, what if they're just – it's like 17-17 in the third quarter, and you just get in a spot where, like you said, you're at the 40, it's a 40-yard type field goal, 3rd and 7, a ball's, batted, all of a sudden it's field goal 17-17.
You got like 3, you got like 2 possessions left in the game, right?
Yeah, it's one of those. You're like, fuck. You're like, are we going for it?
Yeah.
Like, you have those type thoughts coming into your head. Like, are there going to be moments where you're just like, maybe they're up 7 in the third quarter against the Rams? Like, fuck it, let's go for it here. Try to go up 14, not risk going up 10. If he misses, all of a sudden they're in position. They only have to go so many yards. I think today he was easily the story of the day. Just because it's one thing to miss a field goal. It just felt like, God, this guy doesn't even feel remotely confident. He's got that face that I'd rather have him throw something. And I was like, well, he's really cool, I guess. I don't know.
You can't read him. And it reads kind of unsure. He does read, like, just a few body language, but he looked that way when he was making all the kicks. So I don't know. I just know anybody watching every week didn't feel great. And then at the worst possible time, you have 2 bad misses. Like you said, bad misses. Not, if he yanked one from 51 because he's trying to kill it, not ideal, but fine, whatever. These are extra point level kicks.
Well, it's like, on Puka's
and it did cost him this game, which the game didn't matter, but it did cost him the game.
Yeah. Well, Charvarius gave up that touchdown on that good scheme play by McVay. It's like he's right there. No one even thinks about it. It's like that play could easily happen in a playoff. It's like, whatever. He's right there. He makes that play a lot of times. He deflects it. Like, nothing happened today where you're like, oh, that could be a deficiency. Like, it's the NFL. I mean, Puka's might have a chance to be like a 10-year high-level player,
Right.
It's like, whatever. It's good defense.
He's
right there.
Jalen Ramsey. You don't start rethinking whether Jalen Ramsey can play.
No. So it's just, holy cannoli. That guy is just, and the huge part of his story, which would be even if he had been an undrafted free agent, it's like they kind of went all in on this guy, given where they drafted him. Now, because of his position, if he were to lose them a game in one of these 3 games, to me, he would not be a lock to be back.
Yeah. I agree.
Other positions beside quarterback, you probably just wouldn't be put in that position. Even if you're a receiver and dropped a big pass in the NFC Championship game, you wouldn't like cut the guy. To me, the kicker, if he were to have a game where they got fucking upset and he went 0 for 3 or something, to me, it's like use some of that Brock Purdy room to go buy a kicker. Like, sorry, buddy. See ya. You swung, you missed. I had no issue with it, but it failed. And just like Trey Lance, you pivot and you pivot fast. To me, there is tangible pressure on this guy that you just won't know till the game. That's a crazy part about that position.
Yeah. Yeah, you won't know.
And with a closer, you know he's coming. With a kicker, you can kind of avoid him. Like, he might not happen for 2 games until the Super Bowl.
Well, kind of, John, but if you're like, oh, we're scoring touchdowns, like, well, he's still got to come out there and kick the extra points.
But if you're rolling on offense, you can avoid extra points. Don't kill you if you're winning by 15 points.
No, they don't kill you, but they can't. Like, you can come out of there with a 35-10 win. Everyone's feeling good, but your guy missed 3 extra points. Like, you're not all feeling good, right? Like,
but he can't lose you the game by missing.
No, he can't. He can't lose you that game. That's true. Can you get Harbaugh on the phone with him before the next? Like, Harbaugh didn't miss when he was Harbaugh's guy. Harbaugh pumping him up. Harbaugh just loving him, telling him he's the greatest thing he's ever seen.
I mean, is the weather too nice for him?
I don't know. Early in the season, you could convince me, the wind's a little funky, blah, blah, blah. That's a long time ago. That's a very long time ago.
Yeah.
So he kind of kicks it like a quarterback who throws too hard but doesn't have touch.
Bizarre.
Sometimes I almost feel like he's worse on, well, the numbers don't back up that he's worse on short kicks, but, we get some other playoff stuff to get to, but I think the other question that came out of the game was, my theory on Darnold playing beyond just protecting Brock was Kyle Shanahan had to make sure that Sam would be ready to play if Sam had to play in the playoffs. So I'm watching this game. I think one of the ways to watch this game is if the Niners had to win a playoff game with Sam Darnold, if they had to, the good news for them, they don't have to go on the road, but if they had to win the NFC Championship game because Purdy gets hurt, the 2 of the last 3 weeks, this is the 3rd time in 4 weeks that Darnold's played because Purdy got back-to-back stingers. So what'd you think of Sam? You got 4 quarters?
When do quarterbacks ever get stingers?
Yeah, it's weird, man. It's weird. But could you win a championship if Sam Darnold had to play a game for you?
I think the hard part about today is, like, I didn't notice any difference in the 2 quarterbacks, and one guy was on his couch like 4 weeks ago. Now, part of that is, like, I actually was kind of impressed by Wentz moving around, running around out there. To me, by the time the second half, I mean, you're playing with backups. I don't know. Like, it felt very preseason. I would say 85% of the game. He looks fine. He looked fine when he came in the Ravens. Could you win a playoff game? I mean, you easily could, but I would not, like, stake money on it. I don't think you can take away much from the day. Besides, like, he's better. He would be better under Kyle than he's ever been. The weapons he have, McCaffrey being able to throw screens, like, he could function all that. But there would come times where he just has to sit in the pocket and maybe scramble and make a play that I know Purdy can make. I don't know if he can make or would make the right play. I don't think you could gain anything from the day. Like, I personally, more like Wentz, just because he has been out of the league, was like, okay, he can function. He should be in the NFL next year. To me, Sam, like you said, was held on the status of, could you win if Purdy got hurt? You could, but I don't think you could take away, like, what he did today translates to that environment. Not that the Rams were playing hard, but
yeah, I mean, especially early in the game, I did think, obviously not having Aaron Donald's a big deal. I do think that he could give me a little more confidence than I had before I'd seen him play. Really, most of it was not in the second half. I thought he made multiple excellent throws. And he looked like the guy he looked in practice. So I don't think he's any different than that. I think the standard is, like, could he have won you if you took that guy and put him on the field against Philadelphia last year? Could he have won you that game? And I think the answer is yes. Now, I know what you're saying. The guy that played today is not, who knows what guy you're getting in the playoffs. And I agree with that. I do think you see a difference between him and Brock still, which is one of the differences is, like, the thing that Sam kind of always does historically in his career, which is sometimes he can just hold on to the football too long. It happened again. And you just see that's just part of his game. Like, he will hold it and try to make a play and maybe doesn't feel the rush every time.
He did before the fumble make a nice throw that got dropped, broken up or whatever to Conley, right? They would have had some momentum on that drive.
It would have been out near midfield. Yeah, he made it.
Yeah, it would have been Moody time pretty quickly. So I think it's easy to play. Like, that's the preseason type thing that in a real game, we would just be like, why the fuck does he fumble? Or Kyle's probably thinking, we were right there if we just hold on to the football, right? That's a plus, that's a positive when I'm grading the film.
Yeah, the throw is absolutely a positive, but it's also the second game that he's kind of finished where you're in position to win it, and he makes a play that keeps you from winning it. The fumble, it's a freaky play, but it happened. And then the Ravens game, he takes that sack. Crazy, nobody was open, so that's not all his fault. But he takes that sack. So, like to me, there is a difference between him and Brock. But the other difference is he made some plays. He can early in the game when he's playing with Ayuk and Debo, and it looked pretty good. So,
to me, this was like that fumble, cost him the game. Obviously, like this is a game. I don't put the Ravens situation. I know they're only down a couple scores. That to me is in a different world. Like this. That fumble loses the game. Like this is a one-score game. You got the ball with a chance to get in the field goal range. That Ravens game, you're just trying to make a play. I throw that out the window more of like just forcing stuff. Like you kind of have to at that point in time. This, like if you wanted to argue the fumble is pretty bad, yeah, like you got to have some ball security. That's a big moment for the guy.
Yeah, we disagree on that because that was not fourth down. I mean, it pushed them
on the pick.
No, his the sack that he took on the goal line down by 2 scores, Darnold.
Well, didn't he throw the pick on that?
He throws the pick on the next play. I'm not killing him for the pick. I'm killing him, not killing him, but like to me, it's just 2 weeks in a row we've seen him kind of in winning time, and they didn't do it. But all in all, I thought it was a really positive day for him, and he made some throws. He had the one throw where he tried to go back shoulder to Ayuk, like the little things that matter, right? Like, is he on the same page with Brandon Ayuk if he has to step on the field in the conference championship game or January 20th or 21st? And he went back shoulder and Brandon kept going. So, not on the same page on that play. I thought he made the right throw. Brandon was kind of covered, but ask Ayuk about that. But he just looked really in control. How about the no-look pass? Did you think that was a no-look pass to Mitchell?
I saw that the way you posted it, I did. I think no.
So what happened then? Because he wasn't
I don't
looking
know.
at it. You think it came out funky?
Yeah, I think something weird happened.
Because it came out funky, but it came out like a spiral. So that was the part that threw me off.
I don't think he was trying to do like Patrick Mahomes no-look passes. Would be my first just guess of his operation.
The first time I didn't think so. Then I watched it a few times. I couldn't quite tell. He didn't really talk about it after the game, but you watch it thinking for a split second, I'm like, would they spend $12 million to keep him around as the backup? You remember when the Niners did the pay Blaine Gabbert because Colin Kaepernick makes so little? But I think this team.
I think they just try. I think they would just try to bring him back on the same number or something around the same $3-4 million.
So who made more money today?
Carson Wentz.
Darnold or Carson Wentz?
Carson Wentz, because Sam Darnold was in the NFL. Like Sam Darnold was in good position. The Niners would want him back. Other teams will want him to be the backup. I mean, he kind of admitted, like, I had other opportunities for more money. I wanted to be here, West Coast, Kyle, kind of just get my career back on level mode. Carson Wentz was on the couch. Like, Carson Wentz is that's an NFL quarterback. I don't mean a starter necessarily, but, like, he's easily one of the best 64. I mean, you see some of the quarterbacks today, like, he's an NFL player. If the word about, like, him being a teammate and he's been more normal and he's been humbled, just moving around, like, I'd take him as a backup if all the other shit off the field didn't exist. Like, you would take that as your backup quarterback, I think, immediately.
You would think to me, he should stay on the Rams. Shouldn't go anywhere. Because, like, from a skill set, his physicality, kind of, it's a good match with their starting with Stafford.
Yeah. I mean, that the touchdown he threw to Puka was nice. Yeah. He definitely just makes some runs at his size that a 4-yard run gets 6, right? He's a big fucking dude. I mean, so Sam. He looked bigger than Sam, and Sam's big.
He looked bigger than Sam today, right? He looked tall.
Yeah, he looked big.
Carson Wentz, well, I don't remember Baker's numbers last year when he got off the plane, off the tarmac, and beat the Raiders. But Wentz was 71%, 163, 2 touchdowns and a pick. Darnold was 62%, 189, a touchdown, no picks, 3 sacks. So,
second half really had preseason.
Second half was tough.
Honestly, though, a big win for the Rams like that. If they had lost, they had been the 7 and go to Dallas. I think you'd much rather go to Detroit if you're them, wouldn't you? I mean, Laporta hurt his knee.
I think, yeah.
They had a couple injuries today.
Who else got hurt in that game?
St. Brown got banged up. Their second round DB, I think his last name's Butler from Alabama, who's good, got banged up. I mean, they had every time I looked up at one of the squares, a dude was coming off like this. St. Brown like 3 times. Like, Jesus. guys, fucking Dallas is going to win. This game doesn't mean anything. Stop. What are you doing, Dan? Now, Laporta was breaking the rookie tight end record, but if he tore his knee, holy shit, I'll take the Rams in that game.
I haven't seen. Before we started this Sunday night, I saw AJ Brown was like high-fiving guys as they came off, low-fiving guys that came off the field.
He hurt his knee.
I don't know. By the time you're listening to this, if you're listening later or watching later, you probably know what happened to him. My guess, seeing him standing, was that he wasn't like on crutches or in a brace or anything. But
Hurts dislocated his finger.
I mean, the Eagles, John. Holy smokes!
Yeah, I think the Niners want a piece. The Niners would love if just chalk handles. They want the Eagles to win that game. If Dallas and Detroit win, so they can play Philly. You would take Philly in a heartbeat. Would you take Philly over the Rams right now?
I think so, because it's a better the Rams are a better coach and better quarterback right now. Not right now, period. The better coach, better quarterback.
I think I would take, if you told me that Watson, the wide receiver from North Dakota State's back, the Packers have a lot of offensive weapons and their quarterback looks pretty good. I think I would take the Eagles over the Rams and the Packers. Obviously, you would take Tampa, but
right. If the Niners would rather play Philly.
For some reason, I'm just chalking Tampa up as an L.
Yep.
They're gone. So if I had to choose between Philly, Rams, and Packers, as crazy as this sounds, I think Philly would be their number one draft pick right now. They are fucking in shambles. They're just lifeless, gutless. They are like even Dallas today. It's kind of weird early, and then they're just like, okay, we're going to knock you out. And they did. Like that, Dallas is just dramatically better than Philly right now. And to me, Detroit, when healthy, is just a capable team. And who knows if they are. But the Packers are explosive. Jordan Love looks good. And obviously the Rams, you could argue, are one of the hottest teams in the NFL. I mean, they easily could have beat Baltimore, a team that curb stomped the Niners. So, and that was in Baltimore in the rain.
Right.
I think the only thing that slow him down. Yeah.
Right? Stafford's healthy.
He's got a week off.
They're confident.
And there with Raheem Morris.
And they got nothing to lose. I agree with you on the Rams. I just think their coach knows your coach as well as anybody knows your coach. Dan Quinn, we know what Dan Quinn, Kyle Shanahan looks like, right?
Well, I take Sirianni's the worst coach of McVay, LaFleur, and Sirianni, right? LaFleur calls the game.
is Sirianni better than Dennis Allen?
I actually think
John, look what happened Saturday. Like his two coaches, the two coordinators they lost are like they might both be better than him. They should have hired Gannon.
No, they should have hired Steichen.
Oh, they should have hired Steichen. Even better. Yeah. I mean, but both of those guys' teams look better than this team does.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
Cardinals had a chance for a walk-off field goal today.
Should have won it. Honestly, good L.
That they didn't. Yep, good L.
Yeah, I'm with you. If you told me New Orleans is actually playing better, classic Derek, games didn't matter as much. He throws like 7, probably like 15 touchdowns the last like 3 games. They're out of the playoffs though. So, but hey, 9-8, I was good down the stretch, but not in the playoffs. 7 teams. I would say if they would have made the playoffs, Philly might have gone down in the on the road in that building would have been loud. But I have a hard time seeing them losing to Tampa. But hell, I mean, Philly's no lock to beat anybody right now.
Would you rather play Green Bay than Tampa?
I would rather play Tampa than Green Bay because the quarterback, Jordan Love's better than Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
Baker Mayfield's hurt right now. He's kind of limping around.
I know. 9-0 win over the Panthers today. Eagles had everyone pulled out of that game by halftime. Mariota.
Packers defense is terrible. Packers defense is terrible. The Niners would score on them, but it would just be harder on your defense for sure.
I think I'd rather play Green Bay, even though LaFleur knows you. Jordan Love on the road, I would take that over the Bucs defense. I'd rather Jordan Love.
Here's what I know. The NFL would do a circle jerk in their headquarters for second round being Niners, Packers, and somehow Eagles, Cowboys. Is that possible? No, it's not.
Because
the Packers play Dallas. That's not possible.
Not possible. Yeah.
So I think what they would want then would be probably
Rams, Niners,
Dallas,
Packers,
Eagles,
Cowboys. I'm sorry. Dallas Eagles.
Yeah. They want Dallas and Niners as long as possible. And now that the Packers are playing Dallas, they're cool with Green Bay going away.
Who's going to get now? Some of you guys listening to this may already know who's getting the Saturday night Peacock game. A Saturday night game only on. There's 2 games on Saturday. Second one's only on Peacock.
AFC team.
It's Browns Texans. You think?
That's probably the early game. I bet it's like. I could even see it being like Pittsburgh, Kansas City.
Yeah.
I think all the NFC games are Saturday or Sunday and Monday.
Monday Night Football.
I think Dallas, Green Bay is clearly Sunday. Fox at 1:00 Pacific Standard Time. I would say Detroit Rams has Monday Night Football written all over it. Wouldn't shock me if Tampa, Philly, Sunday Night Football. I guess you could go Tampa, Philly, Peacock. That's plausible. Feels more likely that Sunday.
Eagles fans would buy.
Yeah.
Eagles fans would buy. One thing with Dallas is as a historic non-respecter, but like medium respecter. Like they're not a championship team, but you should be concerned when you play them. Their kicker makes all his kicks. He does not.
Have you seen that guy's story? He's like drafted by the MLS. He's a soccer player.
Second rounder in the MLS. Then like a little MLS journeyman. Shuts it down. Wife says, I think you can do that. Then he goes USFL or XFL, one of the two.
Yeah.
Right?
He's a better player than Moody. That's not even disputable.
No. I mean, I watch him. I watch the Cowboys all the time. Like, I trust him.
Fucking drains kicks. Even the Eagles kicker. I don't expect him to be like is good. Jake Elliott like makes kicks. Like does your kicker when you roll him out in a tie game in the third quarter in a playoff game, which if you miss and then they score, it's a 10-point swing, and there is no week 16 the following. There's no more tomorrow. It is to me the biggest because they didn't have any injuries today. So I think that's Moody. Fuck.
Aubrey missed a field goal today, by the way, for the Cowboys. He was 5 for 5 on extra points.
Yeah, I mean, to me, he's been elite.
I don't know the
all
distance
year long.
on that. Yeah. I heard one. I don't know if you caught the Glazer. Somebody sent to me the Glazer report this morning talking about like Harbaugh and all these other guys. And I'd forgotten that the Ben Johnson, the Lions OC, the story on him was just wanted another year with Dan Campbell, which I think definitely just somebody told him. If you told me like him and Matt Rule have the same agent, somebody told him you do not want to go work for the Panthers. Do not go and work for the Panthers. Because the story was that could have been his job, but he turned it down to stay in Detroit.
Yeah.
Which was a good move by him because now he's going to.
Someone told me that he felt a little rushed. I don't think he's that old. And yeah, I think it happened pretty quick that, almost like he was 36 years old last year. He's born in 1986. So I think his stardom from offensive coordinator in Detroit, which happened in 22. I mean, just a couple years ago, he was a tight end coach, wide receiver coach. He's pretty young. What I had heard, not that he was scared, but it was like, this is not going away. We're going to be good. Like felt pretty confident. D'Amico did the same thing a couple years ago. I don't feel quite comfortable with this. I'm not in a huge rush. I think it's easier when you're 35 years old and you're making $2 million to be like, listen, $10 million not going away. I read he might get $15 million.
Well, did you see Georgia just paid their new DC $2.5 million?
The amount these coaches, if Vrabel leaves, what do you think Vrabel would get in the open market? $17 million?
Well, yeah, I mean Peyton got 18. So
in that range.
What did Peyton get traded for?
First.
One first?
Yeah.
How about Bill today? Hoodie, ski mask, walking off the field like you could not see his face.
Was a pretty
frigid.
What were you going to do?
Snowing.
I think that's their fourth loss. Was the final score 9-3?
I don't know. Let me look here. It was definitely 9-3 when they threw that pick.
Yeah. So the final score was they scored. Never mind. Somehow the Jets scored. If they would have lost 9-3, that would have been their fourth loss where they held the team under 10 points and they lost. They set the record when they did it the third time I read. So if that would happen the fourth time. To me, that was a 9-3 game. I don't know. There was 2 minutes left when Zappe threw that pick to the dude on the Jets. So how the fuck did they score? That was a 9-3 game. I'll remember it as 9-3.
Yeah. Bears, Commanders, Pats. Pats get the third pick. Cardinals. I don't know what the tiebreaker would have been. 4-13. Chargers are 5-12, but Chargers end up at 5. Giants.
I think the tiebreaker for Washington and New England was like, because Washington beat New England, but it was one of those like either common opponents or conference. It was some weird type. Which to me, if you have the same record and it's just where there are only 2 teams at 4-12.
Well, nobody's at 4. You got 4-13. Oh yeah, you got 4-13. Commanders, Patriots, Cardinals.
Okay, so there was a third team. Because to me, if it's just 2 teams, it has to be head to head. I was thinking like that kind of sucks for New England, but I guess once you factor in the third team, you have to go to the weird tiebreaker.
Brees Hall 50-yard touchdown run. Oh, I did see that. I couldn't tell where the end zone was. He kept going. I'm like, isn't he in already? He put the ball out at like the 5 and then put it out again at the goal line. It was a nice little run.
I clicked on the game one time. I was like, I have no clue where this game is being played, if it's in the Jets or the Patriots. And I have no clue what yard line they're on. It was hard to tell. Like if you were watching the game, it was hard to tell what was going on. At one point, it was legitimately like really, really white. By the time the end of the game, it was a little more visible.
Did you see Ezekiel Elliott's quote after the game? He said, growing up, I've always wanted to play in a snow game, and now that I've done it, it sucked.
Yeah. That's a good line.
Super chat 10 spot from Brian, who says a level of concern with Moody. Dude hasn't been tested, missed the only 2 kicks that mattered this year. Never look confident. Can he pull it together, or should they bring someone in? I don't know if he can put it together, but they're not bringing anybody in. I think Kyle said after I saw the quotes. Tech tweeted that Kyle said they're not.
Jar my memory. Obviously, he missed the Cleveland kick. What was another kick that he missed?
Preseason.
Was there a Minnesota game kick?
Was there a Minnesota kick? Let me see if I can find his kick log. I mean, the preseason's where it all started, right?
No, yeah.
Was there a Minnesota preseason miss? Probably.
No. I think he missed. So Josh just threw another pick in the end zone. I mean, fuck. I think I think he missed a kick in Minnesota. Yeah, he missed kicks in Minnesota.
Okay. Kicks? Multiple?
I think so.
Oh, I've got him 1 for 2 on field goals in Minnesota.
It was a big kick, if I remember correctly. It feels like a.
Well, they lost the game by 5, so it definitely was a big kick.
Yeah, because they had to score at the end they had to score a touchdown, so they were forcing it a little bit with a concussed quarterback.
Yeah, red alarm.
So he's got a concussion and 2 stingers. Does he have 3 games with no injuries? Because I would say stinger. It's one thing if you're like dealing with a little ankle sprain, totally get it. Stinger's a little weird. Is that like, are they lying to us? Is that actually the injury? I don't think you can really do that in the NFL.
I don't think they're lying, because if you watch the second stinger he gets up immediately. He just kind of reacts like it's a stinger, like you can't feel his left hand clearly. Yeah. And John Lynch had a bunch of stingers. He said it's stingers. Brock said they've just told him you just rest and treatment is the best thing you can do. The longer you go without a stinger, the less likely it is you're going to get a stinger. So, being able to rest him this week, I think was a pretty big deal. Hopefully it, I don't know if the correct verbiage is like you reduce the sensitivity to a stinger, but the second stinger he got was a pretty innocuous looking hit. Like the first hit was a crazy hit. The second one was not that crazy looking.
So it's fair to say that the stingers, if he had been perfectly healthy, there's a chance they play him a little bit today because they just have 3 quarterbacks up and maybe start him. I think it would have been on the table.
Yeah. Maybe
I do think he's had enough scares.
Although I don't think
the stingers.
I don't think they would have, because I do, part of my theory on this game, I think Kyle really wanted to get Darnold. You're going to start. Let's pretend like you have to play in the playoffs, Sam. Let's get you loose. Because Brock has played, Brock played well against Pittsburgh coming off the injury with like 15 days of rest. He played well. Pittsburgh stinks, but he played well against Miami last year when he hadn't played in 6 weeks. In a small sample size, Purdy has shown, even coming off of a lot of rest, he can play well, make throws, do all that stuff. So I think Kyle would have done it anyway, especially with Stafford's resting, and I think Kyle needed, and I think it was the right thing to do. Like, let's get Sam Darnold on the football field.
Yeah, no, I agree, but
just wonder with Ayuk and Debo, right? You start Purdy, by the time he comes in, it's Ronnie Bell out there.
Because the way Purdy went in, now I'm just maybe even just a quarter, you almost treat it like a preseason game and you give him the last 3 quarters, is because Purdy went in, I think, kind of expecting to play. and was almost like I got talked out of it, and I realized I had no juice in the conversation. Kyle was right. Like I wasn't going to play, but it was clear like he wanted to play. And I think the difference, like with Stafford, for example, is they are playing next week. So you can't get anyone, all their guys hurt besides
That's
Puka
true.
for the record. It's like it is a longer stretch. Like I heard Edelman on Friday, he was on with Colin, and he was like, the one thing you got to do in that off week is you treat it like a game week. He's like, in New England, we did not fuck around. Like it was, we'd almost borderline scrimmage. It was just a very serious week. Now it's less about game planning like a normal week because you don't know necessarily who you're playing, but whatever big picture things are that you're struggling with as a team, it's emphasized. Like he's like, it was not a screw around week. And clearly no one was better at it for, the last decade of the 2010s than them. So I would imagine, the Niners are one of the rare teams that don't give you Monday off after a win because Kyle believes in you coach them up right off the tape. Now it's probably like you come in sandals, t-shirt, and fucking, drink Gatorade while watching the film. But still, it's like those guys don't have to go into the facility if they don't want to. That's not the way the Niners are a little old school that way. So I would guess this is a pretty serious film study. Like this is not a screw around week for the Niners.
Yeah. The tough thing is you don't know who you're playing yet, right?
But but you never do, right? As the top, even when there were 2 seeds.
Right.
But it's more just, I would say red zone offense for, I would say run fits on defense, obviously health, work with the younger corners. Let's do some tip drills. Let's do some, PBU drills. Like, I mean, there are things that you could like take really, really seriously. It's less about like whether I'm playing Green Bay or Philly or whatever it shakes out. Because I would say the one thing, the Packers would be a little new because they have a new quarterback, but you're comfortable with the scheme, but their personnel is they're the youngest team in the league. That would be, I don't want to call it an uncommon opponent, but of all the teams you would play, like the Rams are clearly not an uncommon opponent. Philly is not an uncommon opponent at this point in time. You played Tampa last year with Tom and all their personnel. The quarterback's different, but you schemed against all their defensive players, Mike Evans. Like you have a game plan of all these players on the team, including Purdy. So I would say it's kind of unique of all the teams they can play. The Rams and Philly for sure, right? Assuming Detroit and Dallas, let's just assume they win. Like you feel very comfortable playing Philadelphia and their personnel. And obviously the Rams, you're very, very comfortable. You couldn't be any more comfortable. Now you feel good about their backups, right? You got film on their guys. So I would say the playoffs shook pretty well for the Niners in terms of Detroit, to me, is really the only uncommon opponent. Like Dallas, you're really comfortable playing. Rams, Philly. It's just Detroit, which if you ask me right now, I would bet the Niners never see them, would be my guess.
I think a lot of people are going to pick the Rams.
I think the Rams, and hear me out, I think it's going to be cool to pick those 2 underdogs, the Rams and the Packers. And I could see a bunch of people, just because it's easy to pick Tampa. I think a lot of people in the NFC are going to be picking dogs this weekend. On TV, when you see that lower thing, it's not just going to be a chalky. Maybe people feel a little more confident in Dallas, but you're right. I think the Rams, and I think it's easy. Like, fuck, I'll pick Tampa. Why not? The Eagles, what the fuck have they done?
Right. They're 2.5 point underdogs on the road right now.
Who?
Tampa. Sorry, at home.
Isn't that crazy? If you would have told me Dallas or Philly a month ago was playing Tampa, what would you say the line was? Philly or Dallas?
First of all, they're at
7?
home and they're favored by 8.5. Dallas is -7 at home against Green Bay. I like Dallas.
No, but if I would have told you that Philly or Dallas was going to be the wild card,
yeah,
and they were going to play the winner of the NFC South, it would have been Tampa. What would the line have been? 8?
Yeah, 8. That's my number. Lions -3.5. That opened at 4 and it's already down to 3.5 against the Rams.
Could that be 2.5 by kickoff?
John, it could be 2.5 by Wednesday.
What's Dallas, Green Bay?
7.
Green Bay's defense isn't good.
How about Texans +2.5 at home against Cleveland? CJ Stroud against that defense?
Yeah, it's pretty good. Joe Flacco's their quarterback. This is gonna be a hard weekend to bet.
It is, yeah.
Is that the only AFC game we know right now?
Yes, because we don't, as we're doing this, the Dolphins.
So we don't
games
know
go
the
on.
6 and 7 seed,
Right.
or the 2 seed, because
Right.
the Bills are in the playoffs
Correct.
with the Jags.
Because the
losing.
Jags lost. Did you tweet this, or somebody tweeted this at you? Like, I don't remember exactly how it was phrased, but it was like a graphic of all the Trevor Lawrence, Trey Lance, Justin Fields class. Was that your tweet? Did I see you retweet that and say something about it?
Someone just tweeted me that Trevor Lawrence being bad now. I don't think he's bad. He's probably closer to average than he is good right now.
It's certainly closer to average than Andrew Luck.
Exactly. Like relative to what he was billed at, he's, the 15th or 17th best quarterback. He was billed as a guy that's going to be a top 5 guy. If he is average, just if he is what he is right now, that's one of the worst quarterback drafts in the history of the league. Trey Lance is a 3rd stringer. Zach Wilson, is an utter disaster multiple times. I saw something came across my Instagram feed like the Jets will work to trade him this summer. Good luck. And Mac Jones, got benched for Bailey Zappi in year 3. Easily. Like it was probably could have gone sooner. And Fields is an athlete playing quarterback. He can't throw from the pocket. Good athlete, though. You could argue Fields and Trevor Lawrence are actually probably closer than anyone wants to admit as just players, because Fields can just run around.
Yeah, if Trevor Lawrence was your quarterback and you had the number 1 pick, would you be considering taking Caleb Williams? That's the question. Because with Fields, you take, there's going to be a lot of, people are going to argue about it, but you're taking Caleb Williams. Would you be thinking about it if Trevor Lawrence was your quarterback? Because that's how you separate those two.
Caleb Williams makes me nervous. Like I think he is by no means like Trevor Lawrence. This is really, really hard. And I think that is a good example, that draft, of just how hard this whole thing is. Because you're going to go probably to a bad team. Now, the Bears are kind of unique. Like, they're not bad. They got good defensive players. They got good offensive players. They have a wide receiver for them. I think he should pray that they fire Eberflus and go after, like, Jim Harbaugh. Now, if you told me Jim Harbaugh was the coach of the Bears, is he a lock to draft Caleb Williams?
Weird fit, Kevin Warren, the former commissioner of the Big Ten, and Harbaugh.
Well, what if the owners wanted him and they run Kevin Warren out of town?
Yeah, Kevin Warren's been there like 6 months, but could happen.
If I just told you Jim Harbaugh had the opportunity to have the number 1 overall pick, I would not feel comfortable saying Caleb Williams is going to be his pick.
What if Michael Penix beats him on Monday night?
That's my point. I'm just If you told me if you drafted JJ McCarthy number 1, like you could not bet on Jim Harbaugh. Oh yeah, he's going to take the consensus number 1 overall pick. No fucking chance on God's green earth you can do that. Penix beats him, or he just takes his own guy, assuming that he really likes him.
Penix doesn't beat him, and he likes him. The throw that Trevor Lawrence had on 4th down with the postseason on the line was, it was an awful throw. It was a terrible throw. And I texted you, I'm like, did you see that throw? And you said, should we even say it? Should we bleep it out?
No, the guy's a 3rd string quarterback.
It was Trey Lance like.
Trey Lance is an utter royal, unequivocal bust. But it's not. So Zach Wilson, and so is Mac Jones. Like these are busts. These are picks that if you could redo, you don't even contemplate taking that person. Like, to me, that's a bust. It's not like maybe the guy goes on, plays as a backup quarterback. You wouldn't in a million years. You would pay to get your other pick back, right?
The question is,
back to 12.
Who wouldn't you not draft instead out of that 1st round?
Well, you would just take position players.
No, I understand, but I'm saying, like, obviously you would take Micah Parsons or Rashawn Slater, but you'd also take, like, Elijah Vera Tucker. Would you take Kwity Paye? Yeah. Right.
You take anybody who can just play on your team. So
like Javon Holland in a heartbeat.
But wouldn't you say that draft represents most drafts in our lifetime?
Yeah.
Like, that's what it kind of feels like. And that's why I see it happening all over again with this draft, because there are a million sweet, famous quarterbacks. It's never going to be as easy. Like, I saw this clip on YouTube of Ryan Leaf was in the studio with Dan Patrick before the Oregon game. And he was like, I'd take Michael Penix 1. And I thought I was watching something from like last week, and then I clicked on it. And as he talked, he said, like, and he's got a big game coming up this weekend at home against Oregon. He said this like the middle of the year. Now, I don't think he's going to go number 1 overall. I've texted some people that legitimately had him in like the 2nd round. But like, I've watched football long enough to know that the guys can play. Like that translates to some of the stuff you can do, right?
Yeah.
And I've seen enough Caleb Williams that just don't make it. Now, I don't know enough about I don't know anything about Caleb's makeup besides like the fuck Utah thing, which I don't think fairly represents probably his whole thing. But like, I don't know football is life. Is that all he does? Like, is he just a junkie? Like, I don't know enough about that stuff. And that type of stuff they're going to dig into. Now, his talent, he's the best prospect. I won't argue with any, like, if you're just taking a prospect, because that's what the draft, there's a balance of best player. Because like Michael Penix, what he does right now could play. Like the Bears would have been better off today having Michael Penix like that. Now, does that part about drafting is like the next 8-10 years? Like Caleb has Josh Allen, Mahomes qualities. But wouldn't you say in our adult lives, a lot of people have had those qualities and not fucking been able to play in the league?
Well, I mean, I think what the 21 draft shows, it's just a reminder, and Trevor Lawrence is clearly an NFL starter, but it's a reminder, and this draft's perfect where you go, well, somebody has to hit, right? If there's this many quarterbacks, one of them has to be good, just based on the odds. And the answer, like, great, one of them has to be a Pro Bowler. And the answer is why? They're not related to each other at all.
No.
Every I've said this for years, John. There's like, if you go to college football fan bases, I think like every year, like 10 of them like their guy. Like there's not like there's the quarterback. It's just a hard position to play.
I think Trey Lance, you could argue, was the worst pick because like Zach just can't play, but you can see his physical skills and running around. Like Trey, like Justin Fields is obviously dramatically better than Trey Lance because he can run. Like Trey couldn't run. Remember, I was like, why is this guy so slow?
Yeah.
And I would say the difference is of all these guys, unlike him, like he played Division I AA football. All the prospects we're talking about are major teams playing up against good players over the course of their career. Like you've seen their game having to run. Like Weiss Field's fast in the NFL because he ran away from Michigan guys and Penn State guys in college. And at SEC in practice against Jalen Carter chased him around, right, in practice when he first showed up. So you got used to that. Like that to me is one of the main reasons Trey Lance is just a complete dud is because it turns out his athleticism was a negative. It's like, I thought this guy was doing. No, he's actually moves around better.
Especially when you combine it with didn't have great feel in the pocket, right?
Yeah,
like he couldn't even use it.
But neither does Fields.
Right.
But Fields could just take off at any moment and just like, God, Fields is an elite athlete. You know,
I guess my point is like Lance's athleticism was more than enough if he had good feel in the pocket and like could.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's just on the sliding scale. Fields has a chance to be a quarterback. He has a shot.
I don't think so because his like today watching that game, Love is much more just kind of like a Purdy in the pocket.
Yeah, he
just kind of slides around. Fields does the thing. Lance does this. Like when it's not there right away in his head, he starts running in the pocket. Like you can't like, he'll like run through the tackle and the guard into a sack instead of just kind of sliding. Like Penix is elite at that, right? Like kind of moving around. When you kind of run, sometimes it works. You're like, oh shit, Fields going to run for a first down. And sometimes you just run right into Kenny Clark and you're just on your back, right? And that's a Russell Wilson thing forever. He was always a runner. Like when I mean runner, I'm not talking about down the field. I'm talking about like when the pocket breaks down, you just kind of start running to get outside instead of kind of moving. And then like Purdy kind of glides and then he'll run once there's a little space. Yeah. When your first move is to sprint, you just sprint into guys half the time. It's why Seattle always said, like, you know, Russell, he leads the league in sacks. Everyone blames the offensive line. He sneaky runs into half of them. Fields does that a lot, I noticed today. That's why I love the Packers because people were so bullish on the Bears. Like, guys, their offense has been horrendous. Like last year when the Lions beat the Packers to knock them out of the playoffs, the Lions had been scoring real points, like through the air. They had thrown 5 touchdowns in a month and a half. It's like it's easy to like become a highlight meme, you know, like Fields, he's gonna stick a field. No, he's no chance. I would trade him for Penix or trade him for whoever the top 5 quarterbacks are in this draft.
I agree with you on that.
Luckily, he's much more serviceable, and you should be able to get like, I don't know, quarterbacks are weird. If you would have told me Trey Lance got traded for a 4th, I never would have believed you, and they got it. So it's just if you told me they got a 2nd and a 3rd for Fields, it's believable, even though it's kind of insane. But Sam got traded for a 2nd.
The first time.
Yeah, to the Panthers.
Yeah.
Because if you're trading for a 2nd, you're probably picking up his 5th-year option. Like it's kind of I've heard Lombardi talk about this, Michael Lombardi. Like, people talk about Fields the wrong way. It's like, are you willing to trade for him with the idea that I might pay this guy? Like, that's his contract factors in, right? Like, ultimately, Jerry traded a fourth for Trey Lance. Well, guess they're not picking up his 5th-year option this year. So he basically traded a fourth for 2 years of this guy, right? Because he got him the whole 3rd year. Like, Fields, that 3rd year already passed.
Well, is Trevor Lawrence going to play on his 5th-year option? Kind of has to at this point.
Well, next year, that's the thing. You got to pick it up this offseason. He's going into his 4th year.
Well, to me, the question is not do you pick it up? The question is, do you extend him? Do you pay him?
No.
Yeah, so you're like Trevor Lawrence is going to play on his 5th-year option is the point I'm making, unless he has a crazy year next year and then gets extended, right?
Yeah.
But
to me, he's no chance you pay him this offseason.
Like the story going into the next year is Trevor Lawrence going to play his 5th-year option year before an extension comes, which would be pretty crazy considering the level of prospect everybody thought he was. Anything? Any other notes we didn't hit? Anything else you got? McVay never wears a hat. You notice that today? I got a text from a buddy. He's like, McVay, look at it. McVay standing in the Levi Stadium sun, staring into the sun, refuses to wear a hat. And I Googled Sean McVay hat. And the only photo you find of him is from 2003 when he was in high school. Doesn't wear a hat.
No judgment on my part on that. Like, I judge Robert Saleh for dyeing his beard when you're losing. I'm like, you're not a college coach. What are you trying to, you're married, you got 7 kids. What are you doing this for? Which, again, we all like to look kind of good.
Maybe
we all have our own little quirks.
Would you give him that?
That's the one thing. If his wife likes it, I'm cool with it. But when does he see her? He's at fucking work for 6 months.
Once a week when he sees her, she likes it. She's like, last time I saw you, you didn't have gray hair, and then you came home with gray hair. Wow.
That was an incredible touchdown. Holy shit.
I did have you just made me think of this. Is like, look at the Eagles are a
like
great example.
I guess my point is, are you judging him on that?
I need more details. Or McVay? No, I'm not judging McVay.
Yeah. Okay.
I just think it's interesting. Like, he clearly doesn't like the way he looks in a hat, or prefers maybe he doesn't wear sunglasses either. Maybe he prefers just nothing on his hat, his face, or his head. There's something there because he never wears a hat ever. So he must hate hats. Maybe he doesn't own a hat.
Well, Kyle's the opposite. Like, you never see him without one.
Exactly right.
I don't even know what his hair looks like right now. No clue.
Kyle used to. Yeah, I mean, he wears them in the press conferences too. I feel like he's coached some games without a hat, but you're right. He's the opposite of McVay. I did think the Eagles are an example, right? When your head coach does nothing and you lose 2 coordinators that are really good, it can contribute to your team falling apart. Whereas Kyle, you look up and D'Amico is going to be coach of the year. I think I know Saleh, everyone's been talking about his job security for several weeks. For that team to end up with, 6-7 wins, 7-10, lost Aaron Rodgers in the opener. Zach Wilson was all he had to work with, and he went 7-10.
They went 7-10. They went 7-10 last year, though.
Well, I understand that, but nobody planned for Zach Wilson to be the quarterback this year. He stinks.
Yeah, they brought him back.
Credit for Aaron, but he's not the GM.
I think they should have pivoted off Zach and their 9 wins instead.
I agree, but I'm just like, the coaching job is the coaching job. 7-10, that team, everybody thought when Rodgers got hurt was going to win 3 games this year, John. Who thought they were winning 7 games when Aaron got hurt? Not a soul.
Listen, I like Robert Saleh. I make fun of his beard. I'm rooting for the guy. And he's an impressive. Like, he clearly can handle that media market. I can't say that he's like a good head coach. Like, D'Amico's good. Robert, I'm not sure he knows what he's doing. I guess that would be my take. When I say
I'm not convinced that, but like he is a middle of the road. I think there's a chance he's just a middle of the road. He's a Ron went to the Super Bowl. That's not fair to Ron. But like, you could give him a team and you could be solid, which is like the Saints are clearly just happy with.
My way too early 24 prediction: Jets are going to be a train wreck. Rodgers will come back. It's going to be ugly.
Sirianni make it to 24?
Yeah, but they got issues. But here's my thing with Saleh. Like, he doesn't call the plays. Like, D'Amico's calling the play. Like, him and Shane are going at it.
I'm not putting them in the same category. I'm just saying, Kyle, I think D'Amico, to me, Robert Saleh showed me something this year because nobody thought that team was winning 7 games. That's all. He's not. I'm not saying he's
They won 7 last year, though.
Yeah, and then they got Aaron Rodgers. Like,
so winning 7, team, but even better.
Winning 7 with Zach Wilson, winning 7 with Mike White last year was impressive. I thought it was impressive last year too.
But they won with Simeon. They won some games with Simeon.
He's getting no help from quarterback, and he's winning 7 games.
Yeah, I mean,
A lot
Zach
of bad
had a couple
coaches
good
win
games.
4 games.
Their team's supposed to be really good. They had a million fucking picks. I think the Jets are pretty disappointing. The way that, like, he's a huge part of the Zach Wilson being there. Zach, it's not a 6-year, it's his third fucking year.
Yeah, I mean, if I was going to play the other side of it, I'd say he brought the OC with him, and the OC got fired. Right. Michael.
100%. And then obviously they only hired this guy because Aaron mandated with the 7 other 40-year-old players.
Same thing he did to poor George Patton. Is George Patton any good? I don't know. He did what he thought Aaron wanted.
Well, by the time people
and then he traded with Russell Wilson, that's bad.
He's got, when we wake up in the morning, Adam Schefter tweet written all over it about, I could see having a cup of coffee about 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. George Payton has been relieved of his duties. That to me, that's got a Monday morning. Like, didn't quite see that one coming, but anyone kind of in the know, like, keep an eye on that.
Well, Sean, right? I mean,
yeah. I've heard Jeff Ireland is going to be, if he can get him from New Orleans.
Were they together in Miami?
No, New Orleans. They've been together for a while.
Was Ireland in Miami when Peyton wasn't Peyton an assistant in Miami or something like that?
No, I think I make that Jason Garrett. Yeah.
Ireland was the Des Bryant guy.
Fact though, she was. I mean, a prostitute.
No, I'm just saying. Like, am I on the right?
Yeah,
right
that's
guy.
The right guy. Yeah,
that's a comeback.
Yeah, but if like, hey, John, is your dad a farmer? Like, what? Am I not allowed to ask certain professions? That's my thing.
I wasn't being critical. I'm just saying.
Yeah, your dad's a dentist. Like, I mean, if your mom happens to like work that certain trades, like what? Why do we? I've always said this with stripper. Like, if you're a stripper, I can't. If your mom's a stripper, am I not allowed to ask? I always thought that was. If she wasn't and he was fucking with her, like she was just like did nothing or something, I'd be like, God, that's a scumbag move. She literally, I always thought the story was like, well, she was, but it's kind of unfair. Like, well, gonna draft the guy in the top 10. I kind of asked some questions. How'd that help shape you? I'd say Dez a little bit of a wild card.
Anything else for this one?
Kind of a weird week with them not playing.
Yeah, I mean the Saturday night game was a really good set. I really enjoyed Colts Texans, and Steichen was impressive, and D'Amico, and those guys were fun. It's fun to see teams make the. I saw somebody clipped off like the coaches celebrating on the sideline. It's fun to see teams when you haven't been in the playoffs for a long time make the playoffs. It's nothing like no other year is like that year. I'm sure if we watch clips of Belichick winning the Super Bowl, the first one he probably smiled.
He did, because remember his dad was with him. When
That's right, his dad. Yeah,
they were going nuts. They, they went from David Culley. In fairness, no one would take that job at the time. Like they had, that was basically, he was always going to be a one and done. And even last year, I think with Lovie Smith, they did not have many options. So they got lucky that D'Amico had played in Houston, but I would say that it all worked out because they would have taken Bryce Young. So sometimes, just like the Chargers would have taken Tua. Sometimes you get a little lucky. I'm not, in fairness to Tua, like Tua's pretty capable.
Yeah.
But, I think if the Chargers the Chargers don't regret that move. Like they would rather have Herbert than Tua.
Yeah.
Just like the Texans don't regret firing those two guys back-to-back years to get D'Amico and lead them to CJ. Because to me, they're a team I would say for the next. Like I'm buying D'Amico stock. Like I wouldn't buy Robert Saleh stock. I guess back to that.
You know what? On that, when you put it that way, I'll agree with you. John, national championship is
to make your future.
National championship is Monday night. Here's Harbaugh with Reese Davis 4 days before he took the Niners job back in 2000.
Timetable will you use to make your future decision?
I just ask you to respect the game and respect what these players did tonight. It's all about them. I love you guys. I'm proud of you. You're champions. That's what we said when we started this thing. Cardinal campaign to a championship. Way to go. Thank you.
There you go.
Jim was gone the next day.
I took 4 days later. I looked is when he officially took the Niner job.
When was his first jog with Balky? Was that like a couple weeks later?
Probably. Now that probably happened before he was officially introduced. Oh no, I guess it wasn't because then didn't Balky come after him on the timeline?
I do think.
Agreed.
Yeah, wasn't it they were kind of buddies? Like they had been buddying up.
Yeah, I think Jim approved whatever it was. Jim had to approve it.
Trent was there already. Because remember McLaughlin?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Had got in trouble, and Trent was like kind of, or McLuhan. It was kind of the interim, was in the weird spot, and then they kind of just Jim was cool with it, and then they became mortal enemies like felt like quicker than even the 3 years. It was more like 2. Things started getting weird. I do think I'm not going to say this is a legacy ruiner. It's a lot different if he bounces and they had been to 3 state playoffs and he wins a national championship than if he'd just been to 3 straight playoffs and he'd lost 3 times. It's just, it's not bad, but we're discussing the highest level, right? The Sabins, the all-time
because
coaches.
if he wins a championship in college, he'll come to the NFL with a chance to win a championship at both levels, and then he becomes one of the great coaches of all time.
Well, I think he'll
about
immediately
that.
come. Remember, like when Pete got to Seattle, it's like, God, this guy had been in the NFL. He dominated. I think Jim, he would be celebrated no matter who hires him. I do think if he loses this game, though, it tarnishes the wrong word. But you know what I mean? It's just, there's a big difference between winning and losing tomorrow, just the way we talk about this guy historically.
Yeah, for sure. The way I would say it is like clearly mission accomplished. Like Michigan he got Michigan back.
Kicking Ohio State's ass.
But it would hurt to get that close so many times and not win the championship. And what's weird about it is it feels like all these reports, like Michigan's kind of ready for him to go. So if he wins and leaves, he'll be the one that left. You didn't fire a guy that left. They're not going to fire him. I mean, if he wanted to come back, he'd be back. But
why do you think Michigan's ready for him to go?
Well, it's just the way you hear all these reports. Like, I think they're kind of he gets suspended for multiple games this year. I think he's just
self-imposed
pain in the ass, just because he's a general. He's difficult, but worth it. If the bottom line is if you're committed to winning, then it's worth the difficulty. But like I said, I mean, if he wins a championship, he'll then let's say I think if he wants to win a Super Bowl, like the Chargers job makes just so much sense, and he'll have a chance to win. How many guys have won one at each level?
Pete.
Jimmy Johnson?
Yeah.
Barry Switzer? Did Barry win one in Oklahoma?
Yeah. It's a short list.
I mean, he'd go from, like my thing, Jim's got a ceiling on him to just you'd have to acknowledge he's one of the great coaches.
I think the craziest scenario is he gets beat, he leaves, and then they hire DeBoer.
I know, although doesn't it feel like they'd hire Sharon Moore? Like Sharon Moore would have to get a shot, right? Very good OC.
If DeBoer beats him and then he bounces, how do you just not hire that guy? They're coming in your conference.
Jimmy, the Washington AD gave an interview a few days ago and kind of made it seem like maybe we could have done a deal by now, but we're just waiting until after the game.
Well, he's waiting after the game to see.
Jimmy's waiting. No, I understand. This guy's now. This.
No, I'm saying DeBoer. I'm saying DeBoer's waiting.
I'm saying Jimmy Sexton is waiting, but yeah, DeBoer's waiting.
Is Jimmy Sexton DeBoer's guy?
Yes.
Okay.
Like that's. I'm with you. Like Michigan he'd be at the top of Michigan's list. I'm just saying I've become a little open-minded to, well, maybe they would just give the job to the OC who clearly the players love and who's clearly really good.
The difference though is
DeBoer's never had a recruiting, never put together a recruiting class. If I was going to argue for Sharon Moore.
But if DeBoer beats you in the national championship and he's just won all these games in 2 years at Washington, he's 50 years old. Sharon Moore's 37. I would say 85% of programs, you just give it to Sharon Moore. I do think like Michigan's, the Alabamas, the LSU's, the USC's, there's just a lot. I mean, it'd be pretty risky for them, would be my only pushback on a 37. It could work, but it also could, what are the chances that Sharon Moore would be as good as Ryan Day? Right. I think it would be hard. And I'm just saying, I just think it's really risky. Like if I were them, I would immediately offer DeBoer $100 million. Because at least if I fail, I get a guy that I know can win.
Would you have to give him more? Didn't you offer Jim 111? You'd have to offer him that. Jimmy Sexton, right? I mean,
you're saying
I know what you're saying.
Yeah. Whatever the number is. Yeah.
I think the question would be like, Kalen, do you want to be an NFL coach? Because your recruiting class right now is. I am very pro Kalen DeBoer. I'm just making the counter argument because your recruiting class right now for 2024 is ranked 10th among Big Ten recruiting classes. Like you love to recruit, because if not, like you just may want to be an NFL coach, right? Like would the Chargers hire Kalen DeBoer right now?
Well, is there a chance like the crazy curveball this year is the 72-year-old Pete Carroll? Like it's just kind of time, Pete. We love everything you've done. Is he a lock to be back?
Thanks for going 9-8.
But you missed the playoffs, so you went 9-8 last year, made the playoffs,
Same
one and done, 9-8.
Yeah.
Like where are we going? Like you're 72, Pete, and he's never going away. Like he's never going to retire. So you're going to have to fire him.
I think if you're Kalen DeBoer and the Chargers want to interview you, and you're like,
do you think? Don't you think John Schneider would interview?
yeah, I think so. But the difference is, you've got Justin Herbert is the quarterback of the Chargers. Like you take all these guys. You work with them, John. They all want to be NFL coaches, especially now. No NIL, no recruiting, no portal.
It's less work.
They all want to be NFL coaches. So if Justin Herbert, somebody is going to become Justin Herbert's coach. Somebody's going to get to be Justin Herbert's coach. I don't think they'd be crazy to call Kalen DeBoer, honestly.
Yeah,
if you told me there's a Kalen DeBoer NFL rumor Monday morning, I would believe that.
Yeah,
Jimmy Sexton
or Tuesday.
Jimmy Sexton's his agent, John. Everything's on the table. Now, how many NFL coaches does Jimmy have? I mean, he's got to have a few, right? Definitely assistants.
Yeah, 100%. But I think he thrives in college. He's making so much money.
As somebody told me, Kalen's got the college guy, and then when Jim hired Don Yee, he got the NFL guy.
Yeah. Because Jim was just doing the deals on his own, like had his lawyer do it or something.
Right. And now people have used that as another sign that he's going to the NFL.
Maybe just got to a point where the number's so big, you just like, I want to feel comfortable. You could just argue if you have $100 million deal on this. Like, I don't feel we've signed some 20. Like, remember the Niners gave him 4 years, 20 million, or 5 years, 25.
25, yeah.
That's a pretty easy deal to do. You know, instead of winning the NFC, instead of winning the NFC Championship, instead of winning the Super Bowl, like pretty black and white. To me, once you get like, here's $111 million, and there's like 17 pages, like I'm going to lose my focus. I need someone that knows what they're doing to peek at this.
I also wonder if Jim understood. You know, the thing he can't have happen is want an NFL job and not get one. So an agent can just do some. I'm sure he's got people that help him maneuver, but Don Yee can really help you maneuver in the NFL while you're focused on your college football team, right?
Well, shit. I mean, he took Mark Davis for $60 million. So I mean, what can you do for Jim? If you can do that with Jimmy, I mean,
look, you're talking past tense. That's still getting paid out. Or is that a lump sum payment?
No player had a better backup year than Jimmy Garoppolo financially. I'll tell you that much.
I saw Jimmy came back today. He was in uniform. I didn't watch a second of that game, but
yeah,
I saw a picture on the internet.
You couldn't pay if you paid me, said $1,000 right now, get within 7 points of the total. I mean, it was the final score 10-7. Was the final score 25-20? I mean, I have no fucking clue. I didn't even see a play. I actually saw one. They did like some trick play. It was their first touchdown. So I know the Raiders scored a touchdown. Other than that, I wouldn't even know. My guess would be 17-12 Raiders beat the Broncos.
Final score, where is this game? 27-14. Raiders and Broncos both finished 8-9.
What a year.
Wait on word from Antonio Pierce after the game. Report that Reed might retire and Seahawks celebrated their win. LOL. I did not. I searched that. I did not see it. Andy, is that an Andy Reid comment or an Eric Reid comment?
Think Andy Reid's gonna retire?
I don't think Andy's going anywhere.
Fuck out. None of these guys. One, Andy's a lot younger than Pete and Bill. You notice none of those guys want to stop coaching. Do you understand how much money everyone's making? And again, they don't. It's not like they even use it. They don't have any. They don't do anything. They just do football. But you don't just walk away from $18 million when you love coaching football and you have a 28-year-old Patrick Mahomes.
All right. On that note, anything else to add?
No. What a dud of a day, kind of.
We got the national championship game Monday night.
Go Huskies.
Good luck to your Huskies. Later, everybody.